this episode of An Engineer's Journey, I interview Karthik Suri. He studied mechanical engineering at BITS in India. He is now the Chief Product Officer at Cornerstone. Hello, everyone. I'm Connor Dixon. I'm here with Karthik Suri, a mechanical engineer that went to BITS in India and multiple other colleges for his MBA. He is now a Chief Product Officer at Cornerstone. What inspired you to become an engineer, Karthik? And was there a specific moment in your life where you were like, oh, I want to go down this path, and that seems interesting to me?
It's a great question, Connor. I love math. I love people. I love physics. So just from my childhood, I had a little bit of a scientific orientation. And one of the first few books my dad gifted me was Physics Can Be Fun, which is super nerdy, but it delighted me. It concepts such as like, hey, if airplanes are up and the earth is moving, right? Like how can we not do? And it started having me think about, referenceability of atmospheric frame. And this, I was super young then. Or how do you use like, a screwdriver to open like a tin can? And like I started thinking about things like mechanical advantage, etc. So from that particular perspective, I was enamored by the combination of like the physical part of engineering and physics, and just through the course of academic inclination, it became pretty natural for me to pursue that as my first option. I did pause to think, as anyone should, to make sure that this is exactly what I wanted. I wish I had done a little bit more soul searching then, because now I'm doing a lot more or as much business as I'm doing technology or engineering. But it felt natural to me, and that's how I went to one of the more premier institutes in India. I was fortunate enough to get in there.
And what was your experiences like going there and then experiences going to college in America with you went to Ohio State and Columbia University and UC Berkeley to get your MBA?
Yeah, so after I completed my undergrad in engineering, I wanted to pursue a master's because I believe that there is an opportunity to go deeper into what I was doing. It was also an avenue and a channel, completely candidly speaking, for me to migrate to the United States as well. Then my second option was to pursue a master's in India or get a job there. And this seemed as fun as it could be. And I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship and be a teaching assistant. So from that particular perspective, it was a natural course of action for me to pursue my master's. And go Buckeyes! Ohio State was extraordinarily welcoming with 50,000 students there. A huge, welcoming, soft Midwestern culture, a massive sports school that was very attractive for me to start, acclimatizing there. So for all of those reasons, I did what I did there. Eventually, as I started growing from there, I went on, and my first role was an engineering role. It was in what was called a technical leadership program at General Electric. General Electric was, at that point in time, this was in the 90s, the holy grail, the training pad for all things innovation, engineering, and business. And I joined in a leadership program, in a rotational leadership program there to understand the depths of engineering, how it connects to business. Through the course of the program, I had amazing mentors who said that, hey, you seem to love what you're doing. You seem to be passionate. You're good with people. You're good with numbers. Why don't you expand your horizons and get deeper into the business side of the things? So I took on a couple of assignments that were not in core engineering that opened my eyes to the broader world, which then eventually led me to want to pursue a business degree. So I applied to a dual business program between Haas, which is University of California at Berkeley, and Columbia Business School, where I would do, every fourth class would be in Columbia and three classes in Berkeley. And I lived in the Bay Area then. It was grinding. It was a lot of hard work whilst having a family and whilst doing a day job. But I felt incredibly lucky to be able to connect the core problem solving concepts that engineers are really good at, with the application of that into the economics of the world, into culture, into strategy,
Hmm.
to round myself out, in my skills and capabilities.
Hmm. And has there been a challenge that you faced in your different walks of engineering and business that's followed you, or is it different challenges and strengths in different in economics and business and work with people and working in engineering?
Yeah, that's a great question, Connor. You can think about the engineering talent and that engineering community in, like, it's a spectrum, right? On one end of the spectrum are like absolutely critical thinkers and deep, deep problem solvers. At the other end of the spectrum are people who appreciate the power of engineering, the power of problem solving. When I say engineering, it is physical, it is software, it is all aspects of, like, critical thinking,
Hmm.
is know enough about this, but focus a lot more on the applicability of that, on how the world operates differently, and how do you make all of this make sense. But at the same time, unless you're in some pure science research area, how do you also commercialize this? And then there are folks in the middle who serve as the connective fabric, who have deep enough, but not to the degree of the scientific depth, but who are also good enough to have a commercial acumen, and who serve as a connective fabric. I always thought of myself as the middle of the road connective fabric person who could understand the depth of the problem solving, who could have relatability to the really good engineers, whilst at the same time applying concepts of economics, business, marketing to
Hmm.
commercialize this in effective ways, or bring this to life and drive engagement and adoption of these solutions globally. So that is where a lot of my passion lies, in being that connective fabric.
And do you think that benefits you more than being on more than one side or the other, being more the middleman so you can relate more? Or do you think it would have been smart for you to be more on one side or the other?
Completely candid answer. I believe there are people who are much better than I was on the depth of engineering. I was a good engineer, not a phenomenal engineer. Therefore, for me to be fulfilled and at the same time be competitive in what I'm doing, I believe that, if there was a really, really, really tough nut to crack, from a technical perspective, I myself would pick someone else to do that. This became evident through college and grad school. That is not to say that I don't know how to do it. I just know that there are others who can do it better than I am. In the
Mm-hmm.
same way, there are folks who are very good at essentially dreaming the future, understanding the commercialization of it, like, and being able to sell it with conviction. And there are better folks than I am who can do this. I wouldn't characterize the role that I typically play as a quote unquote middle person, but more as a connective fabric. And what I mean by that is that there needs to be someone who orchestrates the power of technology and
Mm-hmm.
bring it to the customer and their usability in a way that delivers value for them. And that orchestration is actually a pretty tedious and tough job. Let me give you a little bit more of an elaboration on this. You could solve a problem technically 6 ways to Sunday and start arguing against yourself, or you could, get into an analysis paralysis portion whereby you let perfect be the enemy of good. On the other hand, you wouldn't understand the disruption that technology could cause and just continue with this happy path of the world as we see it right now. They both are counterproductive, right? On one hand, you're never bringing anything that
Mm-hmm.
is useful to humanity. On the other hand, you're never disrupting or changing humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to speak both the languages and being able to find that sweet spot whereby you have technology that causes a business disruption and enable people and organizations to thrive in that changing world is a fun problem to solve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a lot of people know both sides. So if you know both sides,
Absolutely.
it's
And you
much.
need experts on this side, and you need business savvy individuals on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So, the which of the three is better is a false choice. You need the village to make it all work.
Hmm. What advice would you give high school students and young engineers that are looking to go into college? What advice would you give them about engineering and to help them succeed in engineering?
That's a fantastic question, Connor. Yet again, very impressed with how you have thought about structuring this first and foremost. The first is whatever field that you're choosing, and especially for engineering or pure sciences, curiosity is the name of the game. Be curious, be hungry for knowledge, hungry in search of the truth. Go after the right insights that you're able to glean with it. Like the tools are enormous right now. With generative AI, it's become even more democratized. So, uh, being curious and inquisitive and see how things work and see what doesn't work, etc., is a big part of being a successful engineer, wherever you fall in that engineering continuum, on deep research all the way to commercialization. The second piece is human skills are 2 to 3 times as valuable, more or if not more valuable than technical skills. So just because you're a phenomenal engineer doesn't mean that you're working in an island of your own.
Hmm.
It still means that you're collaborating. And the best engineers are people who can actually bring not just the best in themselves, but the best in others. So to think that you're whip smart and therefore I'm better than the others and I don't have to work with humans, and your success is going to be much more if you're in a position to hone your human skills and be a force multiplier in bringing others' goodness into your solution, whatever you're building,
Hmm.
whatever you're conceptualizing. Know to work with people and make sure that your emotional intelligence is as much as your technical intelligence and acumen, is the second thing.
Hmm.
And the third thing, as I had mentioned, is not letting perfect be the enemy of good, right? Like take your curiosity, take your, people, affinity, and be bold, take certain risks. Not everything is going to be perfect. You're seldom going to have 100% data in whatever you're doing. You're going to have 80% data. Your curiosity to fuel should fuel you to think how I experiment with something. And of course, the level of risk is different, right? If you're an aviation engineer, then of course you don't want to play around with stuff. But
Hmm.
if you're, changing the screen layout on a social media app, like, go nuts a little bit more, right? So understand the risk and don't let perfect be the enemy of good and take risks. This is just not in what you're building and shipping, but this is also in how you see your own career.
Hmm.
Right? Like, one of my regrets, I'm 52, and one of my regrets is should I have actually founded a company? Should I have been a startup founder or a co-founder in doing something that is ground up and taken a little bit more risk? And so keep all options open from that particular perspective.
And what do you think high schoolers should look for in an engineering program? Is there certain requirements that you personally look for, or do you think that you've learned that should look for in professors or clubs or programs that a college has that as students should look for?
No, that's a great question. You need to look for something that is based on the criteria of what you want to be or what you see yourself being, and be flexible about that because you're going to evolve. Your thought process is going to, evolve with time. So from that particular perspective, if you feel like you're like, hey, I want to be the deepest that I can be in research, then find a place that actually is known for research, where you'll have mentoring and you'll have research assistant opportunities, etc., to go into that space. If you're looking for something that is much more hands-on, that's more trade related, that is much more application oriented, then find a school that has more clubs, co-op positions, academic fraternities, whereby you're in a position to actually learn by doing, if
Hmm.
that's where your deep interest in.
Hmm.
And know that, in some of these cases, pedigree matters, and going to like a high brand name school is great.
Hmm.
But the world looks for the output and the throughput and the outcomes and the value that you generate, not your pedigree, right? Those days are gone right now. And people value other human beings not just for their pedigree, but for their skills. So from that particular perspective, don't overemphasize on any particular, like, the prestige of this is better. But if the program doesn't offer what you fundamentally need, then you're never going to be happy.
Hmm.
Conversely, if you want to be like you're not that motivated by the depth of the problem solving, but you want to be like, as in my case, a connective fabric, despite the brand name that some institutions, universities, or anything might have, if you're going to be miserable there, don't overweight that. The ultimate goal is for you to define what success looks like for you. And that's a moving target because as you grow, you're going to
Hmm. Hmm.
discover yourself a lot more and find a place that actually gives you fulfillment towards that. And this advice carries over not just for your school and school selection, but also through in life.
Hmm. Um, if you weren't an engineer or working at Cornerstone right now, you said you wanted to maybe start your own business. Would there be anything else that you would have done with I don't know, free time as an extra hobby that you picked up, or as a career that you wanted to do? Is there anything that you were like, oh, I wish I could have done this, but
Oh yeah,
this isn't
man. I would
perfect?
have loved to be a comedy writer. I'm not saying I'm good at it, but if I were bolder or if I didn't love what I do as much as I do, I would have loved to be a writer for The Simpsons. I don't know if that show is still as popular as it used to be in the
Hmm.
90s and 2000s, but I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy, etc. And uh, and that would have been something that is really fun. And portions of that ports to my current job as well, right? When you're presenting a concept, how do you think about it? How do you,
Hmm.
instinctively bring a group of people together, motivate them to problem solve? Either that or theater would have been something that I would have loved to do, loved to, have pursued on the side. I'm a
All
movie
right.
buff.
All right. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Karthik, for being here. That is it for this episode. If you like this episode of An Engineer's Journey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Comment if I should do season 2, and comment any additional questions you'd like me to ask. That'll be all. Bye bye.